New surveillance footage helping to piece together the timeline of events from the deadly police shooting in Ferguson, Missouri. Here you can see Officer Darren Wilson, who shot and killed unarmed black teenager Michael Brown. He's leaving the police station for the hospital 2 hours after the shooting, accompanied by other officers and his union lawyer. And here they are returning to the station about 2.5 hours later. A grand jury could soon decide whether or not to indict Officer Wilson. And here to explain what that process entails is Robert Schalk. He's a defense attorney and a former prosecutor, and trial attorney Misty Maris is here. Good to see both of you.
How are you?
Hi, Otto.
Hi. Since you're sitting right here, Misty, I'll start with you. So that surveillance video that we just showed, do you believe that it corroborates Brown's attorney's account or Officer Wilson's account of the deadly encounter?
Well, the issue is, it's true, he doesn't necessarily look like he has an injury, but we can't really make that determination until we really look at the medical records. We're thinking, you know, the tape's far away. We don't see his face. His account is that there was injury to his face. We don't see that. The video's grainy. The medical records will really help us to say whether or not it corroborates his side of the story.
Robert. Yeah, but I agree with Misty. I mean, there's this allegation, or there's this news report that's been leaked that there's a broken orbital bone. Could he have a broken orbital bone without any cuts or bruising to his face? Again, the video isn't great. It doesn't look like anyone's helping him to the car. He's not limping. He's not in a wheelchair. You know, the medical record's going to tell the true story here.
But not necessarily dispositive with this video.
Okay, well, let's move on to this. So let's talk about this first. If Wilson is not indicted, should he be reinstated, and in what capacity? And also, are there any further legal routes that Michael Brown's attorneys could take?
Well, yes, if he's not indicted, then on state charges, it's done as far as the murder charge. But there's still a chance that there could be a federal investigation, albeit unlikely. And I think that it's been discussed that federal civil rights charges might not be levied, but there's still that possibility. But almost inevitably, we're going to see a civil suit coming from Michael Brown's family. I mean, they're already setting the stage for that by having all these experts come in, examine the body and whatnot. So we're going to see that coming down the pipe.
And the civil suit would be against who?
The civil suit will be against the police department as well as Wilson directly.
How do you see it, Robert?
Right, and again, there's this discussion of if he's not indicted state, will you see a DOJ civil rights charges brought against him? I don't see how they're ever going to be able to bring DOJ civil rights charges where they need to prove that he acted with racial malice or amicus towards Michael Brown when all the witnesses are the same and all the evidence is the same. There's no way that they're going to be able to view it one way state-wise and I think federally differently. But again, you know, we would have to wait and see if a grand jury's impaneled for that case.
So, Robert, stay with you on this one. If Wilson is indicted, what might that mean in terms of punishment?
Well, I mean, you're looking at the possibility of a murder charge where you'd be looking at 25 to life on that count. If it's a lesser charge of manslaughter against significant jail time, or again, if there's no true bill, the case would be dismissed. Regardless of what happens, this is a trial case. You're not going to see plea bargaining, in my opinion. If he's indicted, the district attorney is going to be forced to go all the way with it because Wilson and his defense team have already said this is self-defense, and they're going to lay it again in front of another new jury and let them decide the outcome.
And of course, you can't predict, but in your experience, how long might a trial like that last?
Oh, that trial, I mean, we're going to see, look at how long it's taken the grand jury to make a determination. We're going to see a similar time, a longer time frame, absolutely. I mean, this case is a little unorthodox from a grand jury standpoint. This doesn't usually take that long to make to go for an indictment because the reasonable cause, the standard is very low. So if we're talking about this trial, we're going to see a year. I mean, maybe even longer.
Do you think anyone will file for a change of venue?
Oh, 100%. The defense attorney, that's the first thing they're going to do. The emotionally charged situation, the way Ferguson has been reacting, the anticipation of the grand jury's, decision. This shows that it's going to be really tough for him to get an impartial jury in that venue.
Right, I agree with that because Ferguson's just a small community of people. You can obviously take it to St. Louis County, which is a much larger pool of potential jurors. Not that people aren't going to have heard about the case, but people potentially aren't going to have such strong feelings about it because they don't live in that community. They possibly don't know all the players involved. So I definitely think that if Wilson is indicted, you will see one of the first things his lawyers do is move for a change of venue.
And I really think that in this case, the judge will agree to it because they're not going to want, if this case goes to trial, they're not going to want any question as to whether or not he was given a fair trial, given the circumstances of this case, the high emotions, and the extensive media coverage.
And given the circumstances of the case, what are your general thoughts on how this case might change the relationships between Ferguson police and the local community, specifically the black community?
Well, I think obviously you see how they've brought in other community activists now that are continually walking the streets and making sure that the relationship is good and improving between the police department. But again, I think you're not going to be able to improve anything until this case is decided one way or the other and people can begin putting this behind them.
Right, and I think the DOJ has already gone in and given extra training to the police officers. Here's how you deal with this situation. Here's the parameters of when you can use self-defense. And I think that's very telling that there's going to be a look for some change in the way that the police officers are dealing with the community generally.
Well, I'm sure we'll have you back to discuss it. Misty Maris, Robert Schalk, thanks to both of you. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Arthel.
Thank you. Well, a German Shepherd rescue in Indianapolis is desperately looking for a new home today. It's been around 4 years and was close to the heart of a local fallen police officer. But today, the landowner is forcing the shelter to find a new location. The founder says should rescue well over 300 dogs, and each of them quickly became like family.
They would give their life for you, and that's not common with people. And but they would do it. It's not lost on me that he's still here helping me.
The dog lover says she has a new place in mind, but not quite sure she's raised enough money. I'm Arthel Neville. That's going to do it for me. I help you and Carol. Up next, stick around for that.